Well, hello, everybody. I am Tina from Rise to Shine Coaching at tinarayner.com, and welcome to an extensive training entitled Solitude Can Be Soulitude. Soul, S-O-U-L, Soulitude. Creative, catchy title. This is a live training with my cat sleeping right behind me. So if you hear her snoring, I can't do anything about that. I'm just going to let her do what she wants to do. Okay. So this training is extensive. It's longer because I wanted to go into depth on a topic which I covered in my playlist on loneliness. Can loneliness kill you? And it was a response. And from the research that I did for that video, and that's at my We Rise to Shine channel under the playlist Best Lie Love Songs 2018. And that was a video that was done in response to a video that was on YouTube called Can Loneliness Kill You? And I did the Can Loneliness Kill You? brackets response to that video. Anyway, so I did a lot of research to make that video, and I saw and found that excuse me, that loneliness is a global epidemic. And it is such a global epidemic and such a destructive epidemic that the likes of the UK, for example, have appointed a minister for loneliness. The minister had a portfolio already of other things, and loneliness has now been added onto her portfolio. And other countries are looking at doing the same thing. So, and loneliness, people think that it affects just the elderly, just, elderly, isolated, elderly people. And that is not true. It is a worldwide epidemic that affects all ages. And so, because if you watch the video on YouTube called Can Loneliness Kill You? You will find that the side effects to loneliness, basically, it can lead to an earlier death. Okay, so it's a fairly serious thing, and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it from a new angle, because all of the experts will basically tell you, if you are a lonely person, they will tell you their expert advice is to get more social. And getting more social is a band-aid on a wound that keeps on bleeding underneath that band-aid. If you are lonely and you are feeling isolated and unable to stop feeling lonely and stop feeling isolated, then that is just a slap in the face, a band-aid. It's not going to help somebody. So there has to be something new. And I believe that I have the something new to solve this problem. So, well, it's not new, but I'd like to put my hat into it. I haven't seen it actually talked about, so I'm going to talk about it. So maybe it is new. So the talk again is called Solitude Can Be Soulitude, and as we progress you will understand what that means. So to start off with, I have a question for you, two actually. Question number 1. Are you a threat to yourself? And question number 2, do you fear yourself? It's kind of the same question, different ways of looking at it. And you might think, Tina's crazy. Why is she asking me these questions? Of course, I'm not a threat to myself. I don't fear myself. It's not like I'm waiting for myself around a corner with a big knife. So what I'm saying to you is, if you feel lonely, then the answer is check yes, you are a threat to yourself, and check yes, you are afraid of yourself. Now, if you Google, and I will put the link to this, it would be good to put a link to this. If you Google on YouTube, there is a video called The Lonely Man on the Moon. The Lonely Man on the Moon. It's not the lonely, actually. It's the Man on the Moon, sorry. The Man on the Moon. It's an advertisement done by a company in the United Kingdom that features there's a little girl, and she's looking through a telescope at the moon, and then she zeroes in and she sees a little house, and outside the little house walks a very old man, and he's looking up at the skies, and and he's looking for something, and he's there on the moon all by himself, the man on the moon, right? And he's there all by himself, and he's this old man, and he looks so sad and so dejected to be alone. And it progresses, and she's trying to communicate with him. She's, making paper airplanes, and they don't go anywhere, of course. They don't reach him, and she's using arrows to try and get to him and send messages to him, and that doesn't work. And it's Christmas season. So she's celebrating Christmas, and the house is full of laughter and fun and presents, and there he is sitting on the bench all alone, looking sad and dejected and lonely. And then somehow she figures out a way to, with a bunch of balloons, send him a gift, and it floats along, and they zero up on him, and his face lights up with this big smile, and he's like, oh, and he opens up the present, and it's a little telescope thingy, an old school one, and he extends it out, and then he looks at her, and magically he's able to find her right away, and then she's looking at him, and they're waving at each other, and so, if you look at the comments below this advertisement, people were crying, because they see an old man, a lonely old man, and it's sad. It saddens them. And when people see lonely people, it saddens them, probably because they connect to the loneliness within themselves. They connect to that same sad feeling that they experience when they also feel lonely. Mother Teresa said, the most terrible poverty is loneliness and the feeling of being unloved. And people agree so strongly with her that, quote, a 2011 study from Harvard University and the University of Virginia found that subjects, meaning people were so adverse to loneliness that they would rather receive a series of electrical shocks than be alone with their own thoughts for 15 minutes. That's 15. They would rather receive electrical shocks than be by themselves with their thoughts for just 15 minutes. Wow. So, as I said, who is lonely? Anybody at any age, according to all the studies that I've read and seen. And what is loneliness? This is something you may not have come across before. Listen carefully. Researchers, quote, defined feeling lonely as a subjective feeling of isolation, rather than a number of friends or close relatives. End quote. Now I want you to focus on the fact that it is a feeling that is a subjective feeling. Meaning, of course, that it's based on personal perception. Means that you and I can be in the same experience and we are perceiving something different about it. It's subjective. That's why when police officers interview people, same scene they saw, but everybody, no, the woman was wearing a red jacket, and no, that person over there says the woman was wearing a green jacket. It's subjective, based on personal perception. Why am I harping about this? Because if loneliness is based on a subjective perception, then that perception can change. Where did this subjectivity come from? This subjective perception of being alone, where did it come from? Well, 20 years ago, I used to be in a church, and I spent a lot of time reading the Bible. And I'm not religious now. I don't attend any churches now. But I have seen over the last 20 years, and I continue to see, that there's a strong influence, at least in Western society, of the Bible. Even if people are not religious, they are definitely affected by teachings, I would say the subjective teachings of the Bible. And so let's take a look at one verse in the Bible. And people who are not religious, just bear with me. It's very interesting. So in the Bible, in Genesis 2, chapter 2, verse 18, there's the verse that says, "Then the Lord God said," quote, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him," end quote. Now, I'm going to talk about this quote, this verse, and the subjectivity that people use in reading this verse. So I'm going to refer to some information I found in an article at sermonwriter.com about this verse, Genesis 2:18. And I'm going to look at it in two ways. Number one, the not good part, as in it is not good that the man should be alone, the not good part. And number two, I'm going to look at the helper part, as in I will make him a helper fit for him. So let's look at the first part. And this is from sermonwriter.com. Quote, "The evaluation not good," which is the opposite of the good, as in God saw that this was good, talked about in Genesis chapter 1, that evaluation of not good actually comes from God. This verse, "It's not good that the man should be alone," it does not have the man saying, "It's not good that I'm alone. I am so lonely. This totally sucks. I am alone. It's not good." The man did not say that. God said that, according to this verse. So that is very important distinction. The man did not say anything about it not being good. Number two, let's look at the helper part. And this is where subjectivity comes into play. The writer in this article from sermonwriter.com says about this part of the verse, "I will make him a helper fit for him," says, after God makes animals and birds in verse 20 of Genesis 2, it says, quote, "But for the man there was not found a helper suitable for him," and that's verse 20. And then the writer says, quote, "This verse suggests that one of the purposes behind the creation of animals and birds was to find a helper and partner for the man." Is that true? I didn't see that. I said I see the verse that says, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." And then in verse 20 it says, "After God makes animals and birds." Quote, "But for the man there was not found a helper suitable for him." Okay, so God makes the animals and the birds. There's no one suitable there for the animals and birds. Got it. Correct. Okay, good. There's no suitable partner. There's no suitable helper in the animals and birds for the man. Okay. This is where the writer gets subjective. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the quote, and here we go again. "This verse suggests that one of the purposes behind the creation of animals and birds was to find a helper and partner for the man, or perhaps God is allowing the man to be," subjectivity here, "disappointed in his search here so that he will properly be grateful when he discovers the woman." The writer goes on to say, there is a note of disappointment in this verse. Continuing with this writer's words, "These words convey a sense of loneliness, incompleteness." Notice the subjectivity here. The verse says, "I will make him a helper fit for him." And then in verse 20 it says, "But for the man, there was not found a helper suitable for him." Where is the loneliness stated? There is no God, the man was lonely, the man was disappointed. There's none of that. Zippo the hippo, none of that. This writer at sermonwriter.com is putting subjectivity into reading this verse, into teaching this verse. Now, if this writer does this, imagine all of the people who have done translations of the Bible over time. How much subjectivity has gone into that, and how much subjectivity has gone into teaching that? All the verse says is, God didn't think it was good for the man to be alone. God wanted to create a helper. Birds and animals weren't helpers. That's it. Simple. Okay. So, and by the way, the word helper, if we want to look at subjectivity, the word helper in Hebrew is the same word that God is described as. God is described as a helper for the people in the Old Testament. Same word in Hebrew, helper, to describe God, is used to describe the woman that God creates for the man. Same word. The subjectivity, though, is that when God is a helper, God is the helper to his people. God, we worship God, we bow down to God. This is like interpretation of people's interpretation of God over the history. I'm not saying it's mine. I'm saying God, one of God's better than us, superior. I can go on. You understand what I'm saying. So, but now then when people look at the word woman, suddenly that same Hebrew word has been changed. How can you change that Hebrew word? How can you change woman to be less than man? How can you change woman to be subservient? How can you change woman to have no rights in many parts of the world, still to this day, to not be equal to man? How can you do that? Subjectivity. A male-dominated society. Okay? It's very, very important. So getting back to the beginning. This is, if the Bible heavily influences Western society and people use subjectivity to read the Bible and teach the Bible, and they read this type of thing into a verse that the man was lonely and incomplete, when it's not even there, then you can understand how this can weave its way through all parts of society. And you have songs such as 1 is the loneliest number, and so on and so on and so forth. Brent Crane wrote an article called The Virtues of Isolation. Quote, "Humans have long stigmatized solitude. It has been considered an inconvenience, something to avoid, a punishment, a realm of loners. Science has often aligned it with negative outcomes. Sigmund Freud, who linked solitude with anxiety, noted that, quote, in children, and this is Freud's words, in children the first phobias relating to situations are those of darkness and solitude." End quote. Lots of negativity about solitude. And this negativity about solitude based on subjective perceptions of what is in the Bible and continuing this is still continued today, of course, as you know. You can read articles like, quote, "Warning, living alone may be hazardous to your health." And I found that article in smithsonianmag.com. And then they did a study and they made this, they did a study on this and they came up with this idea that people who were older and less ability to go out and see their doctor and had some health problems, they died more so. And so they're thinking, it's not affected by loneliness. But then the writer of this article reads this and uses subjectivity to then say, warning, living alone may be hazardous to your health. Again, subjectivity is a huge problem. So, if there is subjectivity in perceiving loneliness, does it matter? Why can't we just continue on? Well, I would not be doing this video if I didn't think it mattered. It does matter. Number one, I just told you before at the beginning of the video that loneliness leads to earlier death. That's a pretty big reason to care about this epidemic. And two, loneliness leads to metaphorical death. Your body might still be alive, but you are killing yourself, living like a ghost in your own life. And I can speak from experience on this. So and in the past, definitely I felt lonely. I'm 48 years old now, so I've lived as an adult for 30 years, yes, and that my math is fabulous. So of that 30 years that I've been an adult, I've lived alone for 20 years. And in the times that I wasn't living alone, or maybe less than 20 actually. So anyways, of that time, I have needed and required alone time daily, on a daily basis. It's been like that as a constant throughout all my life, even growing up. So, however, I felt lonely during those times for many, many years. And I lived as a ghost in my own life because I felt so lonely in my own presence that I was always looking outside of myself to solve this problem. I was looking for people, distractions, movies, whatever it took, just to get away from myself, just like anybody else who's experiencing loneliness. And with regards to people, I experienced the metaphorical death that I just talked about, in that I wanted people to like me so much that I would give away my power to seek their approval. And so that is a metaphorical death. You are killing yourself to it's killing me so that you'll like me, you know? And so I did that for many, many, many years. But because I have spent many, many, many years, number one, living alone, and number two, spent a lot of time in solitude, as I got older, I started to come to the realizations that I'm talking about today. So let's keep going, and I'll tell you what those are. Okay, now if we go back to another good reason why we need to look at this as a problem, besides the death and the metaphorical death, another reason is that loneliness, or the perception of loneliness, leads to becoming a more groupish society. It just connects to what I just said. If you are so uncomfortable with yourself and you are not comfortable with your own identity, then you go outside of yourself looking for people to identify who you are. And you're looking for their approval. And you're looking outside of yourself and who am I? Who do you think I am? Oh, do you think I'm a nice person? Okay, because I don't think I'm a nice person. I don't like to spend time with myself because I'm lonely when I'm by myself. Right? So this is you looking outside of yourself, and then you looking to be part of a group versus you looking to be an individual strong, and then bring that strength into the group. And if you're a groupish society, then you become a following society. And if you become a following society, there are no leaders. No leaders, no innovation. Society falls apart. The society is built upon the foundation of the individual. If the individual is broken here, the individual brings the brokenness into society to create a broken society. So, without a strong connection to oneself, if you see yourself as a threat and that you are afraid of spending time with yourself, then you will bring that same perception, perceiving others in the same way. Perception here is projection there. You have a movie. Your life is a movie. You are the film. You are the projector. You are the producer, the director, and whatever you see here is being projected from here. So if this is a threat here, there will be a threat there. This creates problems in society. It's a lot of negativity. So why? Why would anyone want to change this? Well, because they value life, not dying earlier than necessary. They value also not killing themselves. And they also value here. Most importantly, if there's no value here, then there's really no value in life. There are many, many, many reasons to want to spend time alone. There's 3 articles that I actually researched a lot of articles, and the 3 articles that I came up with, and they share a lot of the same points. It's like they read each other's articles and then add a few extras of their own, but some of them, they repeat some of the main points. So Sherry Borg Carter, psychology doctorate, something like that. 6 reasons you should spend more time alone. As well as Megan Jones, 3 reasons to spend more time alone, and Amy Morin, 7 science-backed reasons you should spend more time alone. And so of the 3 articles, if they were mentioned 2 times or more, these are the ones. More productivity and concentration. Why to spend time alone? More productivity and concentration. You can discover yourself. You can better relationships with others. You have more empathy. You're kinder to strangers. Less behavioral problems with children. Those are the ones that had 2 or more in all these articles that were repeats. other things that they said: think more deeply, work through problems more effectively, of course. You become better people. There's more time to plan your life, more creativity. It's a time to reboot the brain. These are all benefits to spending time alone. Now, what I'm not talking about is just spending time alone watching TV or watching a movie or playing video games or whatever. Those are distractions from spending time alone. I'm not talking about that, and these benefits are not gained by those types of ways of spending time alone. It's not about that. This is about spending quality time alone. Okay? And what is quality time? It is about turning the self-rejection of loneliness into the self-reflection of solitude. And I'll get into that in a deeper way soon. Why would we entertain the idea that this is possible, about changing perceptions of loneliness, the subjectivity that has been in society for a long time? The subjectivity, the perception of being by oneself in this society currently is that one is the loneliest number. And it is a very negative perception. Why would we entertain even the hope that that could be changed? Because the body proves this perception is a lie. The body never lies. Truth always feels good in the body. When we lie to our bodies, it creates weakness in the body. It creates sickness in the body. Look at the effects of believing in the perception of loneliness in the body. If you Google on YouTube the video, "Can Loneliness Kill You?" you will see that video. It has all the side effects of that perception of loneliness, eventually leading to an earlier death. I actually did a response video to that. It's in my playlist on my We Rise to Shine channel. It's called "Can Loneliness Kill You?" brackets response. It could be like it's like a offshoot of this, but connected to what I'm talking about today. Sort of. So, the body, when all of those side effects that are happening to the body, including the earlier death, are the body's way of telling you, hey, this perception you have, to me, the body, is a lie. The body never lies. And truth always feels good in the body. And a lie always feels terrible in some way. At the very least, it weakens the body. Now, you can test this by yourself. You can, if you are alone, you can, do some push-ups. And while you're doing push-ups, see how many push-ups you can do while you say, "My name is," and you repeat your name. In my case, of course, I would say, "My name is Tina, my name is Tina, my name is Tina," and see how many push-ups I can do. And feel how strong I am in the body. Okay? Something where you can test the strength. If you had a friend with you at this time, which you might not because you might be feeling lonely and isolated, but if you had a friend, you could raise your arm out straight in front of you, the friend could sit across from you, and the friend could be trying to push down your arm as you said, "My name is," and your name. And the friend would see how strong your arm is, and you're trying your best to keep your arm strong and straight as you say your name. however you do it, however you test, you're testing to see how strong the body is. Then you change, you give yourself a rest, you come at it the next day or whatever, if you've been doing push-ups, whatever, and you test it again. And while you're doing your push-ups or while your friend is pushing down on your arm, you are saying, my name is, and a different name. My name is Selena Gomez. Unless you're Selena Gomez, then Selena Gomez, choose a different name. Okay, so my name is Selena Gomez. Now, if I have the friend across and the friend is trying to put, and the friend will notice that my arm comes way down. I'm not able to keep it as strong as I did when I said my name, my real name. Same with push-ups. I won't be able to do as many push-ups. Test this. I invite you. Test this. Feel the truth in your body versus the lie. I guarantee you 100%. Truth always feels good in the body. It feels strong in the body, and lies do not. They weaken the body, and over time they lead to, like the perception of loneliness, they lead to illness, and the illness compounds to an earlier death. See what I'm saying? This is a humongous proof to you that this perception is not true. It is a subjective perception that someone else invented for you that you believed, and I believed at one time. And we can change this perception. Now, do you remember how I said that one of the benefits to loneliness, one of the benefits to spending time alone is increased productivity? Do you remember saying I said that? Increased productivity because of increased creativity, because of increased self-awareness, and etc. Ironically, though, when people are asked to spend time alone, they'd rather have an electric shock, or they say things like what Amy Morin, the psychotherapist, said, and she was one of the people that I quoted in one of the articles that we did just a few minutes ago. She suggests to her clients to spend a few minutes alone, and she hears them say, quote, "I'm too busy to make time for myself," or "I can't sit still, I need to be productive." Irony. People do not understand that it is time alone that makes them more productive, not time spent doing. We are not human doings, we are human beings. That's a different topic and a different talk. So, listen to the body, it tells you the truth. Number 2, change your perception of the value of spending time alone. There is value. There's been a ton of studies done on it. I just talked about some of the benefits based on those studies. Okay? Now, let's do an example of somebody who was not used to spending time alone and see what her experience was. From an article in Psychology Today, what it's like to spend months in solitude. Meet Samsara Chapman. She is a fire lookout in Montana's Scapegoat Wilderness area, and the story is told by Brooke Lee Foster. Published July 3rd, 2012. Here's the story quoted, as is quoted. "Every summer I hike 2 hours to the one-room mountaintop cabin where I live for 4 months. Once there, I don't have a laptop, a cell phone, or anyone to talk to. It's just me and my cow dog, Rye. I started working as a fire lookout in Montana 16 years ago. I was just out of college without a job, blah, blah, blah." And then she says, "My first 2 weeks were the hardest that season. At first she was on this adrenaline high, and there was amazing sunrises, and the air was clear and no traffic. But then," she says, "I started to feel lonesome. I wanted to call someone, and when I realized I couldn't, I grew anxious. I couldn't leave my post either, so I began to write a lot. I wrote letters to friends, I tracked my thoughts and experiences in a diary. Writing made me feel less stir-crazy. Then something surprising happened. I woke up one morning in my 3rd week, and I felt a sense of peace. Not pieces, P-I-E-C-E-S, but peace, P-E-A-C-E. Nothing triggered it. I just remember thinking, I'm alone, and I'm okay. I've since learned that all fire lookouts have to push through the initial weeks. You have to get used to living in your own head. So what happened here? She spent time alone. She got over her fear of spending time alone with herself. And how did she do that? There are keys to this. I already gave you the keys. Did you hear them? She started to do self-reflection versus self-rejection. If you hear my cat snoring behind me, I can't control that. She started to write in her diary. She started to listen to her thoughts, tracking them in her diary. And then 3 weeks into this, she felt peace. And she says in the article here, I never get lonely on the mountain anymore. Loneliness is an intense longing to be with someone else. I have people in my life whom I love deeply, but I don't feel the need to be with them constantly. While it's great that my mom hikes up to visit me once each season, I also happily wave goodbye when she leaves. My time is completely my own again. And she talks about going up to the mountain once after a very bad breakup, and she used that time for self-reflection. She used that time to learn what she could from the breakup, from the relationship. By the end of the summer, because she did that self-reflection, she could see clearly what went wrong in the relationship and why ending it was the best thing. So, what is the key here? She chose that solitude. She made it a choice, and she made it a choice initially because it was for money, but then she kept going back to the mountain summer after summer because she wanted that solitude. It was a choice. And in the article called The Virtues of Isolation by Brent Crane, he quotes Kenneth Rubin, who's a developmental psychologist at the University of Maryland. Kenneth Rubin says, quote, solitude can be productive only if it is voluntary. And Kenneth said some other things, but I want to focus on that. Solitude is productive if it is voluntary. And I want to further prove this because of what Nelson Mandela said about solitude. Now, of course, Nelson Mandela, the ex-president of South Africa, one of the greatest humans who ever lived, was put in jail for many years before he ever became president. Of course, we all know that story. And he was in solitary confinement for time while he was in jail. Many times it was used as a form of punishment, so the prisoners would be put in solitary confinement. And what he says about that is, quote, I found solitary confinement the most forbidding aspect of prison life. There was no end and no beginning. There is only one's own mind which can begin to play tricks. End quote. A negative experience of being alone, correct? But then he goes on to say later on in life, after he's not in jail, etc., etc., although, quote, although I am a gregarious person, I love solitude even more. End quote. Did the guy have a split personality? Of course not. The solitary confinement was not a choice. It was not his choice. It was not voluntary. It was a form of punishment. In the other case, the solitary experience, this time spent in solitude, was voluntary. It was his choice. Big difference there. So, but notice that the conditions are the same. He's alone by himself in both cases. The conditions are the same, but the perception of that experience, of those conditions, was different. You see? Subjectivity again. So what I am trying to do today, not trying, what I am doing today is asking you to look at that subjectivity, to look into the possibility of changing that perception, of shifting it. If Nelson Mandela can be bipolar in his views about solitude, you know that that was a shift in his case, because one was a choice and the other wasn't. Same circumstances though. What I am saying is, no matter the circumstance, can you turn solitude into solitude? In my case, and in my answer, the answer is yes. What is solitude? It is changing the perception of the time you spend alone. It is turning the self-rejection of loneliness into self-reflection. Dr. Wayne Dyer said, change the way you look at things and the way things look will change. When people look at themselves and they are afraid to spend time with themselves, or they think of themselves as a threat, then they experience loneliness, that subjective feeling. But what if they were to perceive of themselves in a different way, in an empowered way, in an I am my best friend, I love spending time with myself, I'm entertaining myself, I love myself. Can you hear my cat snoring like an old man? Okay, it's a little distracting. So, if you are afraid to be alone, if you see yourself as some type of threat, then that is the kind of relationship you have with yourself. And understand that the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of all relationships you have with others. So if there's no relationship here, in fact you're running away from having a relationship here because you're too afraid to even face yourself, then what kind of relationships are you creating there? Broken ones. They will break every time. And I've done videos on this in my Best Lie Love Songs 2018 playlist. All the songs, all the love songs talk about these broken relationships that people create because they are lonely and then they go looking for something to save them. But if it's broken here, it will be broken there. So it's very, very important to change this perception. To change the perception of the person you fear, meaning you currently, if you are lonely, you need to face your fear. You need to take the pill, so to speak, the pill, the solution, which is face you. Who are you afraid of, really? Who are you? Turn your self-rejection into self-reflection. Dive deep into the ocean of you. I call this going from solitude into soulitude, soul. Dive so deeply into self-reflection that you even know the very soul of you. You know who you are, the core identity of who you are as a soul having a human experience. That is the power of solitude. And this reflection, this awareness, this journey, this diving deep into the soul of you, into the levels of you, this exploration is endless. It's an endless exploration. It's endless time you can spend in 4 areas. 1, mental. 2, emotional. 3, body, physical body. And 4, spiritual or soul. Mental, of course, is your thoughts, emotions, body, and soul. Most people have no idea what they're thinking. Zero. Very few people have any idea what they're thinking. Thoughts lead to words, words lead to actions, actions lead to habits, habits lead to character, and character to destiny. If you don't like it here, change it here. Most people have no idea about that. That's the power of solitude, listening to your thoughts, just like that woman did. She tracked her thoughts in her diary and came to a lot of insight. It's in here, insight. You see from within, not here. And then the emotions. Again, most people allow emotions to rule them, take control of them. Solitude teaches you, solitude teaches you how to observe emotions from a place of neutrality. What are the emotions guiding me to? What are the emotions teaching me? What insight can I receive from them? And there's lots to be said on that topic. Emotion, energy in motion, not taking over somebody, not giving your power to the emotion. Lots to be said on that. Physical body, we've already talked about how people ignore the wisdom of the body. Experts ignore the wisdom of the body. The body has been telling you for ages and eons that loneliness is a subjective perception that is a lie. But people have ignored that. There is so much wisdom to the body. Lots to be said about that. And then the last, soul, spirituality. Endless to be said about that and who we are on a soul level. This is what I'm talking about. This is the power of turning solitude into solitude. Self-rejection replaced by self-reflection. So when we do this, well, not when, why we do this is because at this time on the planet, it is time to start a global love revolution. I think it's overtime. And this channel is focusing on that, on not starting, expanding a global love revolution. And if I am self-rejecting, then that is the opposite of love here and creating more love there. It's a humongous epidemic that needs to stop. And that time is now. Right now, in this moment. And this channel, meaning We Rise to Shine, my channel here on YouTube, and me personally, this is a heart project for me, a passion project. Archangel Gabriel said, daily quiet time is needed now more than ever. You must go within to see your beauty and to receive insights about how to proceed in your daily creations. This quiet time helps you to make plans for how to further create your vision of a perfected life on earth. In times of solitude, you can discover your soul blueprint. It takes private time, solitude, and discipline. And it takes, of course, deep self-reflection, no distractions. So, in the 80s, the Italian journalist and author Tiziano Terzani, I'm sure I'm butchering that Italian name, after many years of reporting across Asia, holed himself up in a cabin in Japan and said, "The only real teacher is not in a forest or a hut or an ice cave in the Himalayas. It is within us." And I could not agree more. So what I have planned in my next trainings is I will assist you to develop a deeper relationship, a deeper exploration of yourself in those 4 areas: mentally, emotionally, physically, and soul you. I will assist you to do self-reflection in those 4 ways. So there will be a separate training for each. Let me know your thoughts on this training. Share it with any loved ones you think can be assisted by it, helped by it. I really, really hope that this has helped you, and that it undoes, is that even a word? That it destroys your belief in that perception, in that subjective perception of time spent alone. Use the body to test it. The body will tell you it is a lie. If you've seen my other videos, you know that my purpose and passion is to expand a global love revolution. So I invite you to join me in this heart work. If you like this video and you check out the other videos and they are helpful, support the heart work here. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the little bell beside, click that little bell beside so that you get notifications of my weekly videos. And also share this heart work with your loved ones globally. I would really appreciate that. I appreciate you. And I want you to know that you deserve to love the one you're with. And the one you are with is you. We rise to shine as the true light of love. Take care, everybody. I will see you on the next video soon. Bye bye.